The Chicago Bulls were the talk of the town this Saturday morning after they traded Lonzo Ball to the Cleveland Cavaliers for none other than Isaac Okoro. People got their laughs in on social media about this absolutely disgusting transaction the Bulls call a trade. One person even said this is karmic debt for the euphoria that Bulls fans experienced in the 90s. I feel like everything that's happened since then has been karmic debt. But whatever. But my fellow Bulls fans and I can tell you with absolute certainty that our front office is the worst in the association. People have been ripping us off left and right for years, and the only glimpse of hope that this regime has ever given us is officially gone with the departure of Lonzo Ball. In this video, I'm going to explain to you why AK has earned the reputation as a horrible general manager, and we'll go over the numerous transactions in which we were absolutely fleeced. Quick backstory. In the 2020 and 2021 seasons each, the Bulls finished 11th in the East.
Oh my goodness, Valentine! Whoa, no!
Their 2020 performance was so dreadful that they were not even a thought for the NBA bubble. In 2021, DeMar DeRozan, Lonzo Ball, Alex Caruso, and my personal favorite basketball player of all time, Ayo Dosunmu, spearheaded an aggressive offseason for Chicago in AK's second year as team president. Looking to make a playoff push around Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic, they prioritized defensive intensity and tempo through Alex Caruso and Lonzo Ball and scoring production out of DeMar DeRozan. Only Zach LaVine, Kobe White, and Patrick Williams were day one starters from the 2021 season that returned for the 2022 season. The veteran roster established dominance in the East early. They were the only team in the East to start the season 4-0, and through those first 4 games, they led the association in steals. Lonzo Ball averaged 2 steals and 2 blocks per game, and Alex Caruso led the league in deflections. This stretch of hustle on both sides of the ball was not some fluke for a handful of games. They were flirting with the #1 seed all the way until the very end of February. Please subscribe to my channel here on YouTube and follow my other social media outlets, especially Josh Fine Film Design if you want some beautiful sports cinema. If I can hit 120 subscribers before I move back to college in August, I will do a crazy subscriber special to be determined later. I've been chipping away here on and off for the past 5 years, so your support and feedback would be much appreciated. Leave your thoughts on the Chicago Bulls or other video ideas in the comments below. Back to the program. Anybody who paid attention to the NBA at the time remembers how blatantly the Bulls were on fraud watch throughout the entirety of the 2022 season. NBA Twitter in particular remembers the unrelenting rotation of the graphics mocking the Bulls for their inability to beat good teams. They were 0-13 against the top 3 seeds in the East and West. They were 0-5 against playoff teams, so on and so forth. But do not let these oversimplified stats fool you. Yes, the Bulls were spotty all year, but they were just fine against good teams for most of the season. On November 1st, 2021, they mounted a 19-point comeback against the eventual Eastern Conference champion Boston Celtics. They defeated the Nets in December against a great KD and Harden performance because Zach and DeMar gave us 31 and 29 respectively. And although the Lakers were not memorable in this particular season I'm talking about, Lonzo Ball and DeMar DeRozan went absolutely berserk against them for a 121-103 November victory. My point is, we need to remember just how hot the Bulls were early in AK's tenure. But how did it get to the point where the Bulls are coming off 3 straight losing seasons and have absolutely nothing to show for the core that won us a bunch of games 4 years ago? Over the past few years, reports have been littered all over the sports world that the Bulls did indeed turn down one or multiple first-round picks for Alex Caruso. If you think that's an overpay for AC, it's absolutely not. There's a reason he's anchored 2 defenses to NBA championships. And even on some bad Bulls teams, his impact was seen and felt. In the middle of 2023, Sports Illustrated argued that AC should be in the running for Defensive Player of the Year on a middling Bulls team. At the time, he was 7th in the league in steals per game, 1st in defensive Raptor rating, and the Bulls' defensive rating was top 5 with Alex Caruso on the floor at 110 and bottom 6 with him off the floor at about 117. According to CHGO, the Bulls received calls for Alex Caruso as recently as the 2024 trade deadline, turning down offers for multiple first-round picks, one of which became a top 10 pick. The Bulls' actual return for AC was none other than Josh Giddey. For his questionable off-the-court controversy and truthfully bad performance in OKC, the Bulls had absolutely no business getting just Josh Giddey out of Alex Caruso, especially considering the gold mine of draft capital that the Thunder is sitting on. The Thunder could have thrown in one of their extra first-round picks, and it would have not even affected them in the slightest. They could have done that without batting an eye. And we know for a fact that the going rate for AC was more than a first-round pick. If the Bulls front office just had a little bit more resolve, we could have gotten a lot more for Alex Caruso. While Alex Caruso is a super good fit for contending teams, the primary scorers from that Bulls core have proven time and time again that their production doesn't necessarily create winning basketball. At all 4 stops in DeMar DeRozan's career, he's usually just put up nice numbers on bad teams. That being said, the Bulls front office still completely mismanaged him as an asset and ultimately got close to nothing for him in a sign-and trade. As a fan, I honestly do look back fondly at the DeRozan tenure. He gave us one of his best seasons ever when he first got here. He was insanely clutch. He hit those back-to-back game-winning, buzzer-beating three-pointers in back-to-back days. I remember watching both of those.
DeRozan to win it!
It was absolutely crazy. He went on to win Eastern Conference Player of the Month in February of 2022. Although the Bulls didn't do the right thing with DeMar, I still appreciate all the effort he put in to being a Chicago Bull. DeMar DeRozan's partner in crime during his Bulls tenure was none other than Zach LaVine. Of course, the Bulls overpaid for Zach in terms of draft capital and salary. Zach LaVine is not a great all-around player. He can score the ball pretty well, not at an elite level, and he's not ever been a great defender or a great three-point shooter or a great playoff performer. Outside of winning some games when the roster was absolutely stacked, all Zach LaVine ever did for the Bulls was take up a massive contract, hinder the development of young guys, get injured at the worst possible times, and make us look insanely desperate on the trade market. Reports suggest that the Bulls reached out to 15 different teams about trading him at the 2024 deadline. There were so many alternatives to signing Zach LaVine to that max contract just to get absolutely nothing from him on the court and to trade him for nothing. I would like to clarify something off script. A lot of what I'm getting at here is that the Bulls front office totally mismanaged his tenure as a Chicago Bull. And a lot of things I mentioned weren't actually his fault. He obviously gave his all to being a Bull. So I do appreciate that as well. The Bulls could have just not signed him and let Kobe Io Mattis take on greater roles, or they could have traded him for a better return at multiple different points in his Bulls tenure. But by the time they finally decided to pull the trigger, he sustained multiple injuries and dropped off in his production, tanking his value. Earlier in this video, I said that the Bulls front office is the worst in the league, and they might be, but in their defense, what they've actually done is turn over this washed-ass Bulls core to the Sacramento Kings. And for some reason, the Kings think it's just a good idea to run it back with this Bulls duo. And just for that, I might give them the nod as the worst front office in the NBA. Sacktown is about the only town that can make Light the Beam feel way longer than 3 years ago. That takes us to this weekend, where the Bulls finally cut their losses on the Lonzo Ball experiment in Chicago. One thing I won't blame the Bulls front office for is the unprecedented 2.5-year injury that Lonzo Ball had to grind through just to make it back to a basketball court. After a seemingly minor injury in January of 2022, Lonzo Ball underwent a meniscus injury slated to keep him out only 6 to 8 weeks. But what Lonzo Ball ultimately needed was a cartilage transplant in his left knee, which was only determined after 2 pointless injuries and multiple expert opinions from all across the nation. At some point along the process, Lonzo Ball and his family were just hoping that he could walk again, jog again, squat again, and just be able to play with his kids again. But despite missing 2.5 full seasons in the prime ages of his career, and despite his production tanking since the injury, the Bulls still rejected a good return just to extend him and then take a worse return for him a few months later. According to The Athletic's John Hollinger, the Bulls turned down a future first-round pick and some salary dump for Lonzo Ball. Instead, the Bulls opted, again, to trade for Isaac Okoro, a 6-point-per-game player who didn't do much for the Cavs. In fact, it's not a coincidence that as the Cavs have kept getting better over the years, Isaac Okoro has found less and less of a role on the team. He's coming off his worst season with the Cavs, so this front office has never learned its lesson. Time and time again, they receive calls for players at the peak of their value or near the peak of their value, just to turn down those offers in favor of something much worse down the line. Not only does this ineptitude spell mediocrity for years to come because our asset pool is nothing to speak of, we don't have that many draft picks, we don't have any super amazing young players, but letting the veterans stay on this roster way past their welcome has hindered the development of the young guys who are genuinely exciting. At the time I'm recording this video, Nikola Vucevic is still wasting space on my team. God damn it. Another player who's done absolutely nothing to push the Bulls in a winning direction. Another guy who we spent 2 first-round picks on, and another guy who we will get absolutely nothing in return for when the Bulls finally decide to get rid of him. The Chicago Bulls yet again find themselves in no man's land because of their unwillingness to let go when the time is right. So, long story short, Lonzo Ball is no longer a Chicago Bull, and in return we have Isaac Okoro. And although I'm not upset at the decision to get rid of Lonzo Ball, I am thoroughly upset at the return we got for the trade. For Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Alex Caruso, and Lonzo Ball, the Bulls did not get so much as a singular first-round pick. There's no way you can spin that to make it sound acceptable. None. Anyway, that's all I have for today. Thank you for watching. I think it was very appropriate to make a Chicago Bulls video right now. And I don't really know what much else there is to say about the Bulls. They're really good at getting in the play-in and getting fucking wiped out in the playoffs at best. If I were to sit down and re-record a Bulls video 3 years from now, we'd be having the same exact conversation. Although I do think Kobe White, Mattis, and some of the other guys on the team are really exciting. I don't think we're going to be competing for a championship anytime soon, even if those guys take a step up. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and leave a like.